back everyone. Right, now the previous video and this video you're going to see today were actually recorded a few months ago, and it wasn't done on a very nice day. It was raining on and off and it was quite windy, so I must apologise for the picture quality, because there seemed to be rain spots on the lens when I've looked back over it, and there was a lot of wind, so you get a lot of blustery sounds coming through on the recording. Anyway, the previous video we said we were going to do full service, and I didn't get the time to finish everything off, so today we're going to look at how we did the oil change in the gearbox and the diff, because it's already actually been done, and then we'll move on from there. Okay. Right, now last time I said we were doing the oil change. I then went on to do the gearbox change, and the gearbox, there's three plugs. There's one here which is a filler, one there which is the oil level, and by the book it was underneath here there's a plug, and there is one, but it's right where the cross pipe is for the exhaust. So what I did, I had a look and there was another plug right at the back of the gearbox, so use that one to drain it, then you pop that back in, top it up with oil through here, and then as it fills up it starts coming out the oil level plug, and that's when you stop. Then pop it all back in. It was the same at the back at the diff. Just look at the diff. I don't know if you can see here, but there is a plug underneath to drain it. That's the level plug, and the fill plug at the top. Right, so we're going to look at the rockers here to set the valve clearances. Now I've already went round just with a Allen key and cracked off the bolts. They weren't very tight, but there's 8 of them around here. Now you've got to get the cylinder or the piston at top dead centre, and it's also got to be, well, it hasn't got to be on the compression stroke. It's when both valves are open. So I've turned it. I don't know if you can see, but there is an inspection hole down here on the flywheel. So I've turned it using that till the pistons are right at top dead centre, and there's also a little mark in there with a D on it. Now in Italian, right is destra or desro, and left is sinistra. So I take it the D means it's for the right hand cylinder at top dead centre, and we may find a S on there when I come to do the other side. Right, so I'll just pop these off. Now one thing that I haven't been supplied with is a gasket for this rocker cover, so I'm hoping it comes off fairly easily and we don't damage the gasket. Just get a nylon mallet and try and separate that. Just see if we can persuade this to come off. Oh, that's it. Broke the seal there, and we're lucky the gasket hasn't been damaged. Now I don't know if you can see in there, it's milky white deposits around here. I say that's what I was on about in the last video, about dampness getting inside of here, in with the oil. Now if it was water cooled you'd get worried about that, but with it being air cooled engine, it's got to just be a bit condensation forming inside of the crank. Now we have got a little bit of movement on each of those, so must be at the right point on the compression stroke where both valves are closed. Right, now by the book the exhaust should be 0.15 of a millimetre, and I've got it's nearly 0.18, and it's fitting underneath, so that's a little bit too wide, needs tightening up a little bit, and the inlet should be a 0.1 of a millimetre. Let's say I've got had a 0.127 there. and that actually fits under. So they both need tightening up a little bit. So I'm going to need some kind of flat, maybe it's adjustable there, and what looks like about a 12 or 13 millimeter spanner. So I'll just go and get those. Right, so there's actually 11 millimeter spanner, but I've cracked it off a little bit there, and I've just left it tight enough so it's just nipping the bolt while I adjust it. I'm just trying to see when I get enough tension on there, and that's around about it. So I've just got that sort of fit through, and there is a little bit of friction. I've got to pull it to get through, and the trick is now to try and counteract it, try to keep the spanner on the adjuster that way while you lock the nut up. Otherwise there's a tendency for the adjuster to turn with the lock nut, and that's gone a little bit slack. I've overcompensated. That's it. Right, to save the gasket, it seems like it's been coated with something, but I'm going to put a little bit more Vaseline around it like we did before to make sure it doesn't damage the gasket in future when it comes off. But it seems clean, that. Doesn't look like anybody's used any gasket paste. Well, I'm not too sure, there's something around there. May have used a little bit of gasket paste, so put a bit of that on. Put the rocker core back on, nip it up, and then I'll do the same with the other side. But I think I might have a S, which I'm looking for, on the timing mark on the flywheel. Right, so the rocker clearances have been done, they're all back on. Next thing is to have a look at the air filter. So I've got to get the tank off. First of all, there's a bolt here, and then there's the fuel pipe and a few connectors around this side. So I'll just get this bolt out first. Right, I'll just bring you around this side. So, first of all, got to take the fuel pipe off. Now I'm hoping that this is a valve, I think it is, cut off valves, because there's no stop tap on them. Right, that's it. And then there's two plugs. One looks like it's a fuel level sensor, and the other one is for the cut off valve. So that's one of them. And the other one's up here somewhere. Right, let's see if I can lift the tank a little bit. Right, that's it. Right, let's see the connector a bit better. Take that one off. Right, and there's a fuel pressure regulator fitted to the front. I think I've got to disconnect that, so I'll just have a look at that. Right, it's a little bit awkward to get in there, so what I'm doing is taking off, like they said in the book, trying to get this regulator off. If I could just leave that like that for now. So there's a little regulator, and that's the nut that fastens onto them, and it seems like it's got a left hand thread and a right hand thread in opposite ends, so as you tighten them on, it's pulling them both together. So we'll just have 3 Allen keys to take it now. Right, so there we are on the housing, paper element, and looking at that, it's very clean. So I'll just run over it with a hoover just to see if we can pick up anything, but it does say in the book just clean them to put them back in unless they're really too bad, and that's really good. Okay, so I'll just go and hoover that. So I've given that a vacuum clean on one side and compressed air through the other. Pop this back in. Right, we'll see if we get these plugs back on. Now, there's 2 plugs, and luckily somebody's labelled them with a red tag on for the fuel tap and left the other one blank. This is the fuel tank one. A little bit tight to get your fingers in. Okay, so that's them 2. We'll get the tank properly in place, and then we'll try and get the fuel pipe connected up. Oh no. Right, so just try and get this fuel pipe onto here. Right, we'll just see if we can get this fired up and check, see if there's any fuel leaks anywhere. Right, so it's fired up. Tap it sound a lot quieter there. Right, so got everything sorted there. What we need to do now is have a look at these LED driving lights which he's got. And what I was thinking about doing, he wanted them up here somewhere, and rather than use the 2 original slots that's in there, which would do, I may move it up so it gives a little bit more clearance on this the forks stabiliser. So it would mean, let's see, cutting it off around about here and here, and cut along the top there, so release all that, and then put a hole about there and a one about there, which is big enough to do it. Now, to do that, I've got these 2 bolts in here, and I think I'm not sure they're just M8s or something, or M6s. Yeah, they're just M6s, so if I get 2 spaces, put them in there so I'll lift it off a little bit, so that the bars down here aren't touching the forks, and then just get some longer bolts, pop them in there. So that's the idea. So I'm going to do a bit of cutting and drill a couple of holes, and I'll come back and see if they fit on there okay. Right, so I've just managed to make enough room on the bench so I can get on. So, and what I've done, I've marked out on here where I'm going to cut it and everything and drill it. Put a piece of masking tape on. So that worked out that was 100mm wide. So I'm going to cut along there, along the top where the tape is. Cut these to round them off. Centre punch and drill the 2 holes in there. The 6mm bolts, so I'll drill 6.5, so I've got a little bit of movement on it, a bit of clearance. So I've made 2 spaces to go behind these 2. And these lights are a little bit tight when you put them on, that they'll hit in there. So I've made another 2 spaces with the 8mm hole in so that they can fit there, and it'll give it more clearance so that we can tip those back if we need to. I've sorted out some dome headed nuts because these don't look very nice on there. These aren't stainless, but neither are these, so it's matterless, but it'll look a little bit better. And I've got some grommets which I'm going to put in these holes here, because when the wires are going through, they're already starting to get a bit scratched off them if they're going through there. For going into the bottom yoke, I've got 2 stainless steel bolts, and what I've done is I've turned the faces down a little bit. It looks a little bit more professional than when they've got all the stamp marks on there, so I've got those. Right, so I'll get on and just cut this and drill it, and then we'll see about getting it on the bike. Right, so that's it all bolted together, and what I did on here, I just touched the badge and it was coming off, so I thought, well, I'll stick it on there because that's going to be covering where the badge goes. You can still see the Moto Guzzi sign. So we'll get it bolted on, just get the spaces. Got to put a bit of thread lock on these so they don't vibrate loose. Right, that's it. Just needs adjusting up a bit. Right, so the lights went on successfully, and what I had to do, I had to put a switch on, which I put on sort of where the instrument lights are, and wired up, and I had to get it in for an MOT quick because with the bad weather during the week, I haven't been able to get it on and do all the work quickly, so I had to rush it at the end to get it in for its MOT because it was booked in. Anyway, it's went through the MOT, passed with flying colours, and I've actually taken it back and gave it back to Dave now, so he's got it and he's happy with it. Right, anyway, thanks again for watching everyone, and I hope to see you again next time. Take care now.